Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my show, Crypto by Jess, where it's my attempt to make content that the everyday person could understand. Whether you're in crypto or not, it doesn't matter. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't matter. What we care about on this show is following where the money is going in terms of investments, and we care about the policies that Capitol Hill and key decision makers are rolling out into the market, into the world, that are going to affect our direct finances, right? Like, who cares if you're a Republican or a Democrat if interest rates are so high that you can't get a business loan out, right? There are so many factors involved, and in today's video, I'm going to break down some of the most recent market events in the last 24 to 48 hours, and I'm going to unpack it for you. So if this sounds interesting to you, please like and subscribe. It encourages me to make more content for you, and I have a lot more lined up for you if you only knew, so just hang tight. But let us get started. Okay, so the first piece of critical news, and that is what I'm going to call it, is what you see on my screen, right? So we see that one of the world's largest banks, ICBC, is saying that Bitcoin is much better than gold. So I did a little research and I wanted to share this with you, right? Why is this so significant? So we know they're one of the world's largest banks, right? But what I find interesting about them and how it, I believe, may have a role to play in future politics that will affect our finances is in one key fact. So it's in two key facts. So they tend to invest in technology and innovation. And we know that Bitcoin is clearly like the biggest technological innovation of our century outside of AI, because it directly affects money. And we know AI is going to affect all corners of every aspect of our lives. But for now, what's here now and going strong and disrupting the world and the banking system, which indirectly disrupts the strongest, biggest financial players, right, in the world, has been Bitcoin and the Bitcoin network, right? And we know that there was an outage today. We know that Microsoft had an outage and had many people displaced today, and it was due to some upgrade that I guess pointed the routers in the wrong direction. If you haven't followed, I'll go over it just briefly in this video, so just hang tight. But what's very interesting is that, back to what I'm sharing with you on the screen, is that ICBC is a bank that not only is it one of the largest banks in the world, right, with $7 trillion worth in holdings and in assets, but they tend to specifically invest in technology and innovations. So right off the bat, that tells us that this bank is calling Bitcoin much better than gold for more than just financial reasons, right? They're saying this because they recognize the technological genius that is represented in Bitcoin. So that's one thing I found very interesting. But the next thing is that one of its largest shareholders is actually China. So here it says it's a state-owned enterprise with the Chinese government holding a significant share of its equity, which influences its operations and strategic decisions. So why am I bringing this up? I am bringing this up because we know that a few months ago in April, as you can see on my screen, because we know that in April, several crypto ETFs were rolled out in Asia, allowing Chinese investors to be able to invest in Bitcoin's ETFs, right? We know that China has been closed off to Bitcoin historically, but through these ETFs, through the Hong Kong exchange, where is it? they basically gave mainland China investors access to it. So how does this affect you or affect us, or why is this so important? It's important because we've also seen that as of 2 days ago, we've heard, and I covered this in my last video, that China's central bank has basically been printing money, right? In the same way that the US did it during COVID times, and it just didn't stop afterwards with the stimulus checks that almost everyone received. Maybe you were one of these people. I didn't, because I'm not there, and I didn't. But the point is that China has decided to start printing its yuan, its currency, right? And there has been speculation, actually, Ivan on Tech. If you guys are already in crypto, then you know who I'm talking about. If you're not, then Ivan on Tech is a really big crypto. I would say, I wouldn't so much call him an influencer because that has connotations, right, of just kind of doing things in a salesy way, which I don't want to be considered either. I'd consider him more of like an actual thought leader. He's an actual builder, developer, investor, really like legitimate human being, I would say. I've only met him once. But the point is, he brought it up in his broadcast today, a tweet by somebody that basically said exactly what I said in my video yesterday. So I said it before I saw it anywhere else. But what I said, right, and to me, it's kind of like all adding up. So this is my own suspicion, but I tend to be good at connecting the dots. And this is what I am connecting right now, is that China's printing liquidity all of a sudden, right? Then they have this bank that they are a majority, I don't know if majority, but they hold a significant share in this bank, right? So they hold a significant share in a bank that is invest in technology, right? They all of a sudden start printing liquidity, right? And then we heard in Ivan on Tech's video, and I said it in my video yesterday, so go watch it if you haven't. But I basically call it, right? I was like, it only makes sense now that the whole world is, being informed of Bitcoin's power, how there's a limited supply, which means, as all things with a limited supply, eventually can become or represent a valuable asset, right? Because if there's not so much of something, the scarcer it is, the more valuable it can become, right? And Bitcoin is unbreakable as a network, as we saw proof of today with the Microsoft outage. Bitcoin's network was completely unaffected. Why? Because its power source is not centralized, meaning it doesn't depend on any one business or one person. It is distributed through a network, like a net, right? And each of these little connection points, or nodes as we call them, secure the network. So you'd have to take down like over 50% of the network to take it down, which no one is incentivized to do, right? It's a separate conversation. But the point is, and this is what I'm getting at, is that it would make all the sense in the world, and I'm not saying this is what's happening, but it does make sense if all of a sudden China were to start printing their yuan to go buy Bitcoin, which we know Trump, as we'll see in a few seconds, you can see right here, he's going to be speaking at Bitcoin Nashville's conference, I think like this week already. He has announced that he's going to be announcing or talking about his strategic Bitcoin reserve policy, which means basically, long story short for you, if you're not familiar with the financial world or what's going on in the world, it's my pleasure to keep you up to date, is basically he is most likely going to be talking about how he's going to denominate, right, or base the US dollar by Bitcoin, with Bitcoin, right? We know that he has previously spoken about bringing Bitcoin mining to the US. Here on the screen, you can see some of the key quotes he's made regarding crypto, which is that if China is into it, right? That's what he said. China is into it, as I just showed you, right? They're a majority shareholder of ICBC Bank that invests in technology, they're recently printing liquidity. What do you think they're going to do with this, right? If they're into the future digital gold of the world, like what would you do if you had the ability to buy millions of dollars of Bitcoin? You probably would, right? And we know that the US and China have been rivals for a long time. So there's a real race happening behind the scenes. That's what I believe. And that's what Trump said, right? And this is what he's going to be talking about at this conference in Nashville, like this week sometime. I don't have the exact date for you. But, he says, China is into it. It's not going away. And then he says, we will ensure that the future of Bitcoin and crypto will be made in America, right? That's what he said. Previously, he's talked about bringing Bitcoin mining or the making, right? The generating facilities for Bitcoin to America. That makes sense. So this is probably going to generate new jobs, right? So if you know anyone that's sort of into like, these techie sort of like hands-on technology maintenance type jobs, we're probably looking at a bunch of new jobs around Bitcoin mining, right? He's talked about making crypto taxes, more favorable because he's also a crypto investor, right? But what's so much more important here from all the things that he said, which means so much to me because I'm an American. I recently just came back from the States after, it's been like almost like 4.5 years since I've been there. And it was both heartbreaking to see the condition of the country, but at the same time, it made me so proud. I don't know if proud is the right word. It really made me want to be part of helping the US. I love this nation. It was built on such radical freedom, fundamental just principles. And it's really, really moving. I've never felt so patriotic as I have now. And I said it in a tweet earlier this week. I think it was yesterday or the day before where I say, I feel like Trump's reaction to being almost shot, right? Like he was shot, like on his ear, right? His immediate reaction of standing up, fist in the air, just showed you his instincts. Yes, it was divine intervention or a really great coincidence, depending on how you want to see it, but he moved at exactly the right time. And what I think for me, just on an instinctual gut level, won me over on Trump was with his reaction. Like the reaction people have in the moment of fight or flight, right? When they're shocked with something terrifying, speaks volumes of who they are. And his immediate reaction, yeah, he ducked for safety. That's just common sense. But once Secret Service got to him, it was like fist in the air, like defiant, and he's still here and he's still going to fight. And for me, that spoke volumes personally. So anyway, and that's one of his most important quotes, I think, here on the screen is that he says, I don't want to be responsible for another country taking over this sphere, right? Because we know what makes the US so powerful also is its geographic location. We know geography plays a huge role in a country's ability to become prosperous. And, like if you're landlocked, like my original country in Bolivia, like we're landlocked. It's the heart of South America. It has no ocean front, right? That has really affected the nation. I mean, we do have the Amazon, but that's a separate topic. But the US is it's like a giant, it's just a giant piece of land with ocean on both sides, right? Atlantic and Pacific. And it's protected. It keeps it protected, right? And its neighbors Mexico is dangerous, but Mexico's never going to attack the US, right? Because it'll just be demolished, right? So you have Mexico and Canada. But anyway, the point is that the US is great for more than one reason. And I really hope, and, it succeeds. And I just feel like Trump's reaction to this whole assassination attempt has brought back, and this is what my tweet was about a couple days ago, was that I think he just bought back America some respect finally, you know? Like America's been like the laughing joke, I think, this whole term with Biden, unfortunately. And I also mean no disrespect to him because he's just sick and he should go home. He's older, he should be at home. But anyway, this is what's happening. But that said, I just want to segue quickly into some key economical facts that are going on, which is related to policy, right? We know that inflation rates are better than they've been. And that said, we know that the Fed is supposed to be rolling out interest rate cuts, because if inflation is getting better, it's not getting worse, then this should technically encourage the federal bank to lower interest rates to allow people to borrow money, right? For homes, for businesses. It just supposed to make things more economical. But I just wanted to share this clip with you because it explains what might really actually happen. So let's just take a quick listen.
A warning to all investors. Expectations of rate cuts in 2024 are increasing. And contrary to popular belief, this is not good for stocks. Inflation is finally coming down. And with that, the Federal Reserve is gaining more confidence to finally start cutting rates. But this chart shows that this phenomenon is actually bad for stocks. It shows the relationship between the stock market and Fed pivot. Notice that the stock market sells off only after the Fed pivots, which is expected to happen in September. So although theoretically rate cuts are bullish for stocks, historical data tells us otherwise. Furthermore, investors have flocked to big tech stocks over the last few years, mostly due to their robust growth and healthy balance sheets. But as rates start coming down, investors will likely rotate back to dividend stocks, small caps, bank stocks, and real estate investment trusts. Follow me and...
So I'll pause there, and all I will comment on this is from a traditional financial standpoint. We have to keep in mind, right, and this will always be my commitment to you, is to argue both sides of the argument, be open to it, right? So I am open to your comments if you see things differently than I do. I'm not trying to shape the way you think. I am open to hearing back from you. Actually, I would love that. But what I would argue regarding this is that the landscape of investors and their interests and the opportunity for them to invest in other high yield, thriving sectors of commerce has expanded. We know that NVIDIA is now the world's largest, richest company, and we know in many ways it's been responsible for saving the stock market. It's pretty much been driving the stock market to a large extent. So we know that AI has been majorly disrupting and is very much so a new option on investors' investment plates. So that's one. And then two, with Trump's election, right, which we all pretty much feel at this point, and polls are demonstrating this as well, that with Trump leading the way and most likely to become the 47th, correct me if I'm wrong, the 47th president, I believe, he is very much so talking about Bitcoin in his, as part of his election campaign. So I believe, especially if he is now announcing his Bitcoin reserve policy plan, and talking about bringing Bitcoin home and backing the US dollar with Bitcoin, this is something that affects everyone's dollar, like in their hand. It affects the dollar, right? So this means that overnight, pretty much everyone is going to be aware of Bitcoin, right? And in my previous videos, I've talked about the different banks starting to offer Bitcoin to their clients. We can expect a lot more of that, is what I'm calling, because it just makes sense, right? It's just like adding up the digits, right? Adding up the numbers. So I believe to counter this perspective in this video, talking about how most likely investors will move into more conservative assets. I would beg to argue against that. So we do remain open. We're not fortune tellers, but while history does rhyme, I believe things may be very different this time around. But the point is that interest rates are going to be cut. I believe it's sometime in September, which for the crypto space anyway has proven to be very bullish. So that's that bit of news. That said, we know that there is also talk, and I just wanted to bring this to you, right? There has been talk on crypto Twitter, on the news channels. This is what I want to share with you, of Trump nominating Jamie Dimon, right? So if you don't want to go watch the news and follow everything the way I do, you can just come to my channel and I'll give you sort of like a summary and my perspective, pros and cons on everything and how it affects our money. Like that's the angle. That's what matters here, and that's how we're going to wrap up this video. It's going to be exploring this idea more on not being a Republican or a Democrat, but simply following good policy and seeing things through that lens. But there's talk of him nominating Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan, right? And I believe it's JP Morgan that's offering Bitcoin to its customers, but I'm not 100% sure of that. But let's listen to a little bit about his strategy and the way he runs JP Morgan. And this foreshadows to me the way he will most likely advise Trump on managing the US's Treasury, right? Let's listen, which is very comforting, honestly, like if we learn about his strategy. Here, take a listen.
Manage the risk. The center of Dimon's risk management strategy is a concept he calls the fortress balance sheet.
I always thought you should have a fortress balance sheet in this business and maybe some of yours because bad things happen.
The idea is to build up a cushion of assets and capital to protect consumers' deposits if the bank gets hit by unexpected shockwaves.
And most banks will build a moat and build up their walls and say, we're protected. But what Jamie Dimon says is, okay, but those walls might be made of like paper mache. So on top of that wall that all the other banks have, we're going to add a higher wall, and then we're going to add some turrets up here, and then we're going to add some people walking around all the time, making sure that everything is safe all the way down.
Is it fair to say that JP Morgan could have losses of $500 billion or $1 trillion? Not unless this Earth is hit by a moon. Okay.
He doesn't care about this quarter's results. He doesn't care about next year's results. He cares about making sure the bank is safe. Partly, he gets to say that because...
We'll pause there, but that just gives us a glimpse of who Trump is most likely looking to nominate as the U.S. Treasury's head, right? The person in charge, which is very comforting, which makes sense, right? Now that he's talking about how he wants to denominate, right, or base the US dollars reserve in Bitcoin. So a lot of exciting developments coming, but I will keep you updated in the next videos. And then just pivoting, and we're going to start wrapping it up, but just a few more updates on what else is going on, right? Is that we know that the SEC has given preliminary approval to 3 issuers for spot ETFs, ETH ETFs, starting July 23rd. So in a few days. I think it's supposed to happen next week, Tuesday, depending on when you're watching this. So we know that many speculate this is going to temporarily dip, right? It's going to temporarily affect the market. There's going to be a little sell-off, but it always regulates, right? So don't be alarmed if this happens. If this happens, it's not the end of the world. It's just sort of to be expected. Someone always buys it up, right? Next, if you're looking for some alpha, this video is not intended to be an alpha shill or anything like that. But since Elon tweeted this, promoting MAGA, which we know is one of the top trending meme coins related to Trump, which I said in my yesterday's video, I believe anything Trump is going to fly this year. And I, if it doesn't fly for the next 4 years, it's definitely going to be it's going to be flying this next year, right? Because Trump is going to be most likely be president. And if anything, he's a very controversial human being. And so anything related to Trump seems to be doing well. And now we have Elon Musk promoting it basically on his Twitter X channel to support Donald Trump. So it's pretty awesome. And it clearly tells us that Elon Musk has chosen his favorite Trump meme coin. So this may be interesting for you, not financial advice. And then just a quick glimpse at the ETFs that are set to launch. Here we go, mainly on Coinbase, Gemini, and Fidelity. So pretty huge news coming, and just some more validation. We have legendary hedge fund manager Hugh Hendry saying that Bitcoin can triple in price. So I thought I would share that just for some additional validation. And then looking at this chart, right, Elijah here breaks it down for us, but he basically explains like where we have been in previous sideways trending motion based on the patterns, right? So the one we saw in October was a breakout. This was an official breakout pattern. What we've seen going into, like March, going into April was a triangle breakout pattern. And based on where we are at now, I'm not sure if you can see my screen proper, but based on where we are now, the pattern indicates we're in a breakout pattern as well. So there's politics painting the picture and talking about rolling out policy that's going to be favorable for Bitcoin in the crypto space. We have banks validating it. We have China trying to front run or outdo the US in its Bitcoin holdings is what it looks like, but this will be revealed later. And now we have just historical patterns indicating that we are very much so at a breakout point, which just reemphasizes or should just remind us all to take action now, right? It's not a time to be sitting on your hands. It's absolutely a time to be investing in Bitcoin, okay? If anything else, right? Invest in other crypto tokens. Yes, I've shared and made multiple videos on multiple top crypto tokens that I believe in. So go check those out. I'm going to start making a lot of content. Actually, I'm going to do a live session. So if you want to be part of a live session with myself and top crypto builder and investor Kyle Chasse, then you will want to follow me on Twitter X. My channel is called like this, Crypto by Jess. This is my handle, Crypto by Jess. And I share all of the latest news and trends, everything that's happening that really matter on my crypto Twitter. And yeah, I'm new. Actually, I used to have a different account. But I made a new one for this new media channel that I'm building. So very, very exciting. And then just quickly, we're going to brush over the last of this. But this is what I was talking about earlier. And this really shows the resilience of Bitcoin. We had this major CrowdStrike update that caused multiple disruptions worldwide. Some are speculating, right, just to give you the full picture, that this might be part of some grand master plan hack. Who knows? But the point is, it had many people stuck at the airports and people just unable to use their Microsoft products. And so anyway, but what's very exciting is that this served as a use case or an example to the world on how Bitcoin could never suffer this, because its power is not centralized. It's decentralized, or the opposite of centralized, right? And so not one person or company hold power of shutting down Bitcoin. So you don't have to be worried about that. I'm actually going to make a whole video on this for you, just explaining the power of Bitcoin and how it really works and why it really matters in the world outside of just financially. So very, very exciting. It was it's not exciting. So I'm sorry if anyone suffered from this, but if you are in Bitcoin, then you can be reassured that you're invested in technology that is safe from being hacked. It's built into its design. And then just lastly, we're going to wrap it up with this video, but I love Kevin O'Leary's perspective. He's on Shark Tank, right? I love his perspective on politics, and this has been my perspective on politics. So I'm so happy to hear that this is like he agrees with it or he also believes this way. But he basically just cares for good policy, right? Like that's all you should care about as an investor. So let's take a listen.
Sat with me now, and he's going to address the markets. Ain't that right, Kevin O'Leary?
Great to be here. Thank you, Stuart.
Good to see you, fella. Good to see you. I got some red on the screen right now. This is pre-market action. A lot of selling after yesterday's big rally. Now, the rally that we've seen, I call it a Trump rally. What say you?
I call it a policy rally because that way I can stay bipartisan. But the market is anticipating change in policy to be more accommodative for business.
We've got the president, Trump says he would consider JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon for Treasury Secretary if he's elected in November. What do you say to that? Good choice.
Rumor on the street here in New York is Dimon wants that job.
Yeah,
I think it's a wonderful outcome because he's known as a very pragmatic, good banker. I mean, this is really what you want on policy, to bring in talented individuals into the cabinet that both sides like.
Yep.
I mean, it's brilliant. If this is the new Trump 2.0, I like what I see.
Yeah, it's a winnable guy, isn't it?
That's what. Well, I mean, is he good? He's going to be a different kind of president in this second term. It looks like.
It looks like it. All right, Kevin.
Exciting, huh? Well, with that, guys, and this is just a glimpse at what the airports looked like because of this outage that also took out Microsoft. But anyway, guys, with this, we will end it. I hope you gained value. I hope you see how policy affects our money and indirectly affects our future, and how right now our future looks really bright, and how I would encourage you to think outside of, being a Republican or a Democrat and simply think in terms of financial policy. That's it. And anyway, exciting times ahead. I love you very much, and I am bringing you a lot more content this next week and doing a live session. I'm also going to start doing live YouTube videos for you. So this will be exciting because you can ask questions and I'll be here for you, and it'll be just far more efficient. So that's it, guys. I love you very much, and I'll catch you guys here next week. Ciao.